everyone. This is the movie for Chapter 4, Pause and Practice number 3. That's on page W4-230. And we're continuing to work on Emma's brochure, if you will. And the last Pause and Practice we did, we took the table that we inserted and we formatted it. We took some text that was already in existence and used the placement of the tabs to turn it into a table, and then changed the format of it so it doesn't really appear as a table, it just appears in a nice format. So keep that in mind, that you can use a table to build the structure but not have it actually look like a table. Alright, so if we take a look at the Pause and Practice 4.3, we're going to work on changing the orientation of the document, because right now it's portrait, and how you can always remember portrait, if you think about an art gallery, portrait are usually painted in this orientation where it's taller than wide. If you look at landscape paintings, they're usually flipped the other way where they're wider rather than the width is more than their height. So that's where those terms come from. So we're going to change that orientation so it's landscape. We're going to work on changing the margins. We're going to put some columns in so that we have 3 columns, and then we're going to break the text so that it lays across the columns in the way that we want. So those are our goals for this Pause and Practice. So the first thing that we're going to do is to change the page orientation and then work on the margins. So that page orientation is found in the Layout tab. So that's, if you think about it, we're working not, with text or a paragraph, but the overall layout of this document. So you would go to the Layout tab. And this page setup is where we're going to spend some time. So you can see here is orientation, margins, columns, breaks, all of those things. It's right in this area. Once again, because it's changing the overall layout of your document. So the first thing we're going to do is go into orientation, change it to landscape, and then immediately you see it's wider than it is tall. Okay, so when we had it back in portrait, right? So where did it break here? It broke education and training. We're going to change it to landscape, and now it breaks way up here at professional credentials. Okay. Well, that's good, but there's a lot of white space, and if we're going to do 3 columns, we need to make use of as much as we can. So let's go ahead into this margin tab button, and we're going to do some custom margins. So the top is going to be 1.2, and you'll see why in a little bit. And the bottom left and right are all going to be 1/2 of an inch. So I'm just going to hit my tab key, do 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, and then there is no gutter. The gutter is when you bind something, it is that space that's outside of the margin, like you don't see that margin, but it's added space that's going to be used for binding, whether you're 3-hole or you're actually binding it like a book. That's what the gutter allows you to do. And are you binding it on the left or the right, which we would normally do left. Okay, so I think that's all we want here, and we might get an error message here. Oh, we didn't. So you might get a message that says, hey, you have some stuff that's going to be outside of printable area, depending on what your printer is. You can just say ignore it. All right, so now it's all here in one big column, right? One column. By default, we have one column. So we want to change that to first we're going to do 2. So I just went up, once again, we're still in layout columns, and we're going to do 2. So, okay, so like if that was a book, like you were going to fold it here, okay, that would work. But we're deciding, but it's still going to a second page, and we really want this all to be all in one page, one side of a page. Okay, so let's try and click the page setup dialog box, and let's go to layout. Oh no, hold on. So sorry. We want to go back to columns and more columns. And from here, we want to pick 3. And then what is nice about doing this is we can now control the spacing between the columns. So we want 3, and we want the spacing to be, what does it say, 0.6. And we want to apply this to the whole document. So when we did a spacing of 0.6, it had to reduce the width of the column because to fit it between the margins, right? So we're going to do OK. And okay, so now it's on one page, right? But it's kind of a mess. It's like breaking very in not very appropriate places, right? So let's go ahead and see how we can fix that. So what we really want is this, what clients are saying is to be up here in column 2. So what I'm going to do is go right in front of the W, and we're going to use this break button here. Click that down, and we want to do not a page break, but rather a column break. We're saying, hey, at this point, let's go to the next column, right? So that's going to happen. So if I go over here, oops, and I turn my reveal codes on, you'll see right there it's a column break. So at that point we're saying text, 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 no matter what, at this point, go to the next column, right? So we're going to do that same thing in education and training. So we're going to go right in front of the E, break, column. It's going to pop that up onto the 3rd column. So now it's across okay. I'm going to turn my reveal codes off. But I'm not, it still needs some work, right? One of the things that the book tells you about, so we went back up here to breaks and did this column break again. The key combination for that is Control Shift Enter. So you could have done that at that point rather than going up here to do column. So either way. All right, so that's the end of this movie. That's the end of this pause and practice. So the last one of the chapter will be in the next movie, and that's going to put the final touches on, make it a little pizzazz. We're going to put some name up here, a couple different, we're going to put a logo, a little picture here. We're going to put this text in, these quotes in a box. All right, guys, thank you.